Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining BASA's Future of Talent webinar. We're going to be getting started shortly. My name is Sonia Atsegwa, and I am BASA's Director of Strategic Partnerships. And in my role, I build and manage partnerships with employers to connect them with top entry-level talent from the BASA community. We're excited to use our time today to discuss how AI is transforming businesses and the recruitment process as we know it. So we're going to get started shortly. But before we begin, we know that many people on this webinar have different experiences with AI, and that everyone on the webinar is likely using AI in a different way. So while we wait, we want to understand how you're using AI in your everyday work. So in a second, you're going to see a Zoom poll appear on your screen where you can let us know how you're using AI on a regular basis. Thanks again, everyone, for joining. We're going to be getting started in just a couple minutes. But while we wait, we have a fun Zoom poll on the screen because we really want to understand how you're using AI in your everyday work on a regular basis. So if you can please indulge us in the poll to let us know. All right, thanks again to everyone who is joining. I'm seeing more and more people log in. Super excited to have you all here. Sonia Atsegwa, BASA's Director of Strategic Partnerships. Before we get started, we have a quick Zoom poll on your screen so we can understand how you're using AI in your everyday work. All right, thank you for completing the poll. Let's see what the results say. All right, so as you can see, people here are using AI in different ways. Some of us are using AI for creativity. It seems like a majority of the people here are using AI to drive and increase efficiency. People are also using it for research. And we also have a few people on here who are not using AI. So thank you for completing the poll and letting us know. AI is absolutely everywhere. Everyone is talking about it, thinking about it, and really trying to just figure it out. And there's also a parallel conversation around AI ethics that is so important to this moment that we are in right now. While this event today is not about AI ethics, we do believe that it's important to keep that conversation going. So we're going to share some helpful resources about that after this conversation. So the BASA team for months now has been so excited about this topic and about this event. And it turns out so many of you are as well. We've had over 300 people RSVP or express interest in joining this conversation today. So for those who are less familiar, we wanted to provide some oversight on why BASA is uniquely positioned to host this conversation. So we're going to start by talking about why this conversation is so important in our AI position at BASA. And after that, you're going to hear from an amazing panel about how employers, universities, and job seekers are using AI. Getting our event kicked off is Sheila Sarum, BASA's founder and CEO, and BASA's product lead, Kendra Gaunt. Before I hand it over to them, we want to hear your questions today. So we're encouraging you to drop your questions into the Q&A feature throughout this event, and we will get them answered after the panel discussion. If you want to be acknowledged or identified during the Q&A, just include your name, your geography, and your organization so we can share that alongside your questions. So with that, I'm going to pass it to Sheila and Kendra.
Hey folks, Sheila Sarum, BASA's founder and CEO.
Kendra Gaunt, Senior Product Manager.
And we're so excited to have all of you join us today. The attendance numbers are rising by the minute. So we're really excited about this topic because hiring touches everyone's lives. And hiring is impacted by so many factors: economic shifts, political moments, social movements, and of course, emerging technologies. And I can say that literally all of those variables are at play right now. In these moments, it can be the most vulnerable job seekers who are exposed to the greatest risk. And that's why we wanted to bring together the perspectives of three people who can speak to how they're using AI in their own work to drive outcomes for first-gen students. We hope in that conversation that you both see the sort of overlap or synergies between those three speakers, but also perhaps identify where there might be tensions in how each group is thinking about using AI. As we move into the conversation, I do want to invite you to leverage two lenses, both as part of our conversation, but also to take back to your own organizations, your own jobs, and potentially your own lives. The first is really related to the best piece of advice that I received as an early stage founder, and that was do not fall in love with your own solution. Fall in love with the problem. And I can't think of a moment over the last 8 years where that has felt more salient. We are being bombarded with a proliferation of solutions that AI has enabled. And so I'm just reminded to go back to the question, what problem are we solving? What problem are we solving? And I encourage all of you to use that lens as you hear us talk about AI today. The second is, I would venture to guess that about a year ago, most of us have never even used the words AI in our daily language, and now it is all around us. So I think it's safe to say whether you're Gen Z, Gen Alpha, Baby Boomer, Gen X, Millennial, we're all learning together. And so I encourage everyone to think about how am I driving my own learning in the AI space? It's only through learning the technology that we're going to really be able to maximize the use and to make an impact. So 2 lessons, what problem is this solving and how am I really owning my own learning in this space? For those of you that are less familiar with Basta, I wanted to just provide a quick intro, who we are, why we feel kind of uniquely positioned to host this conversation that we're having. So Basta started as a direct service fellowship in New York with just 40 students, and we've grown into a national movement. Today, we've supported over 12,000 first-gen college students across 300 campuses and in 40 states, with alumni launching their careers at top companies like Bloomberg and BNY and Deloitte and Deutsche Bank and Amex. And we have a decade of delivering results, both for first-gen talent and employers. And I think that sort of cross-section has given us really unparalleled insights into how you build great connective tissue between early career talent and employers. We saw our impact even more clearly in 2020 when we launched Seeker, Basta's career navigation tool, which is the only nonprofit tech tool of its kind in the marketplace. Through Seeker, we have collected millions of data points on thousands of students, all of which have made us smarter about the work we do with students and employers. And we believe in the importance of democratizing access to data. So every time we have a transformational insight, we publish that on our Insights Hub. And we'll provide a link to that in the chat, but you can always go to our website and find that as well. When I think about Basta in the last 8 years, I attribute so much of our early success and our ongoing relevance to this steadfast focus on centering our users, first-gen job seekers. We've really remained committed to hearing from and understanding the evolving landscape in which young people are making this, at times, tenuous transition from college to work. And so before we move into the panel, we wanted to just bring us back to the lived experience of a first-gen college student today. And I cannot think of a better person to do that than my colleague, Kendra, who not only leads on our Seeker product, but also spent this last fall conducting extensive user research to best understand what problems, what pain points were young people experiencing, and where might we be uniquely positioned to help solve them through AI.
Yeah, thanks, Sheila. And what we learned from that is job searching is overwhelming. There are thousands of postings, countless career paths, and just a sea of advice, but no clear way of knowing what's right for you. And first-gen students in particular are often seeking but don't have readily available professional networks. And that's why we built Seeker, which is an AI-enabled career navigation tool launched by Basta back in 2020. And it really gives students this "you are here" moment for job seekers. So by collecting and analyzing extensive data points, about 1.5 million from over 12,000 students, we can translate that vast amount of data into clear, actionable guidance, making the path to employment more transparent and achievable. And our North Star is shining brighter than ever. And that's to empower first generation college students with personalized career guidance that evolves with their journey, enabling them to confidently navigate their path from education to career. And we know that AI has the potential to take this mission even further and transform Seeker into a truly adaptive tool that provides clarity, direction, and real-time support for students. And as Sheila mentioned, in the research and design work that I led this fall, learning alongside first generation college students and universities, we uncovered that AI has the opportunity to solve three core pain points. The first is filtering out the noise and delivering relevant information at the right time. Second is really helping students identify their next steps with confidence. And then finally is providing personalized guidance without the wait. And speaking of research, I would love if you all could indulge me in some real-time user research through a quick Zoom poll. And so I want us to take a moment and think back to your own first job hunt. What would have saved you some of those sleepless and sweaty nights? I'm curious to know which of these would have been helpful in your career search. And so maybe it was having some real-time application feedback. So someone to tell you like, yes, that cover letter looks great. It makes sense. Or, hearing you've got this and giving you that confidence boost that you need. Or maybe it's getting recommendations on what jobs to apply for. I know my process really involved sending my resume into kind of what felt like a black hole and nervously and sweatily practicing my interview answers in front of my bathroom mirror. So I'd love to learn, how was your experience for your first time job search? And we can look to kind of see what those results are. Okay, wow. All right, somewhat even split. It looks like the highest came in at getting the recommendations on what jobs to apply for. And that real-time feedback too, which we know is helpful. So thank you all so much. And your answers will actually shape, how we're thinking about using AI to support students who don't have that advantage of, calling up a family member who works at their dream company. And so AI is really going to transform Seeker in a few ways. The first is, again, filtering out that noise. So career navigation is overwhelming. Students are bombarded with job boards, career advice, resources, and they don't know what's relevant. They also have to switch between the Indeed, the Glassdoor, the LinkedIn, and then back to Indeed, only to find job recommendations that are misaligned with their skills, filled with industry jargon, or require years of experience that they don't have. And that leads to a lot of frustration and wasted time. And so Seeker's AI curates job matches, acting as a career advisor that services those insights in real time, filtering through that noise and servicing high fit opportunities based on their actual skills and interest. And so instead of this endless scrolling and feeling overwhelmed, students can actually get highly targeted career insights that help them take action faster and apply to roles they're actually qualified for. And the second is helping them identify those next steps. So many students have an idea of what they enjoy, but will struggle to map that to real careers. And first generation students in particular often bring such valuable work experience, such as customer facing roles in retail or hospitality, that is dismissed when they apply to jobs in the corporate fields like tech or finance or even consulting. And without clear guidance, they may not realize how transferable their skills are. And so AI can help students recognize how their existing experience can translate into roles they may not have considered, such as leveraging that customer service experience for roles in client success, operations, or even sales. And so instead of guessing what those next steps are or feeling underqualified when applying, we give them that confidence to pursue roles that are aligned with their strengths. And then finally is that first gen students often can't assure they have a professional network on tap for immediate career advice. And Seeker's AI can predict optimal career paths and provide personalized suggestions based on people who successfully transitioned into careers. And that empowers Seeker to deliver real-time individualized guidance, helping students make more informed decisions quickly instead of relying on this one-size-fits-all career advice. And we know all of this because we've spent the past decade working with first-generation students, deeply understanding their challenges, aspirations, and untapped potential. And really, Seeker was built for them to provide them the clarity and guidance they often don't have access to. And with that, I'm very excited to give you all a sneak peek into how Seeker AI is bringing this vision to life. Welcome to your personalized Seeker report. This page is all about you, created from the information you shared about your drivers, energy style, skills, interests, and experiences. Think of it as a snapshot of where you are today and a roadmap for where you can go next. From here, you'll see an overview of your top career insights. It highlights your unique strengths, areas you might want to develop, and a few tailored next steps to get you moving in that right direction. This gives you clarity and confidence in planning your future, so no more guesswork or feeling overwhelmed by too many options. Next, let's head over to the Job Match dashboard. Here, Seeker's AI goes beyond simple keyword searches and uses everything from your report, so the skills, experiences, and more, to connect you with jobs where you're likely to thrive. No more wading through thousands of generic job postings. Instead, you get a curated list that fits you. And what really sets Seeker apart is the AI-driven match score. We're not just matching titles or keywords, we're comparing the nuances of your background with the role requirements to see how you align. This means you can trust these recommendations are truly personalized, not just one size fits all. Let's take a look at a couple of examples that really bring this to life. Suppose there's a role where you match 80% of the requirements. Seeker highlights the skills and experiences you already have that align well. It also shows you the 20% of skills you might still develop, but it still encourages you to apply anyway because you don't need to be 100% qualified from day one. You'll also see dynamic career tips popping up, suggestions on things like networking strategies or relevant BASTA and partner events. And if you want even more perspective, there's a short alumni video of someone who once felt the same way you do. They share how they leaned into their strengths, overcame self-doubt, and landed the job. It's an immediate confidence boost and proof that you can do it too. Let's take a look at another role. Here you see dynamic recommendations for skills, and Seeker provides dynamic career tips, upcoming events, or even company-specific resources to help you build up that expertise. This is especially valuable for students who might underestimate themselves or worry about not meeting every single qualification because it shows a clear path forward and encourages them to apply with confidence. And that's the power of Seeker. Instead of endless scrolling and second guessing, you get a handful of genuinely great opportunities and a clear view of why you'd be a good fit. You also get practical guidance on how to build up any areas where you're not yet 100%. This is the AI-driven support students have been missing. Direct, relevant recommendations, and the confidence to apply for roles that truly match who they are and what they can become. Yeah, and with that, we are thrilled to announce that Seeker Lite is coming soon. This publicly available preview version is designed to give you a taste of Seeker's power, which is that personalized report that unlocks valuable career insights. And so we're gearing up for our launch and would love for you to be among the first to try it out. Simply fill out our interest form that will drop in the chat, and we'll get in touch with you as soon as Seeker Lite goes live. And I will pass it back to Sonia to lead us into the panel.
Thank you so much, Kendra and Sheila. The foundation that you just heard has positioned BASTA to be at the forefront of AI-powered solutions for first-gen career success. And we're just getting started. We're thrilled to share that the Schultz Family Foundation is supporting BASTA's efforts to further leverage AI to tackle underemployment and create lasting economic mobility for early career job seekers across the country. So we wanted to share how we are rooting this conversation in our work in the lived experiences of first-generation college students, and also how we're continuously staying curious and investigative about their challenges and the realities that they face in their job search. There's so many different people on this webinar today. We have employers, we have funders, we have university leaders, so many different groups of people. And we all play a role in helping job seekers navigate using AI in their job search. So Kendra and Sheila just shared the role that we at Basta are playing in this work. And now we want to quickly hear from you. So in a second, you're going to see a final Zoom poll for today before we jump into our panel, where you can rank what your role could be in 3 key areas of this work: building AI solutions, providing AI training to job seekers, and investing in AI tools for job seekers. So complete the poll to share your thoughts. Curious to hear what folks on the line have to say. Let's give it a little bit more time. And then I'm excited to see the results. All right, let's see what we have here. All right, it's interesting. It's a pretty even spread. It seems like across the array of people that we have on this call, we can each play a role in each particular area, right? People have varying levels of comfort in terms of the role that they can play in these 3 key areas. So thank you all for engaging us in this poll. And again, as you can see, we all have a role to play here. AI is not going anywhere, and we need to make sure that job seekers, particularly first-generation job seekers, understand how to leverage it. So with that, I'm excited to move us to our panel discussion today. We're here today to hear from an amazing panel about how AI is changing recruitment from beginning to the end. It's transforming how employers are finding talent, how universities are supporting students in finding jobs, and also how job seekers are looking for jobs. So each of these groups, employers, universities, and job seekers, are each using it in different ways. And it's important to discuss how it's being used, uncover potential tensions that exist, and also discuss how to stay ahead of the curve as the technology advances rapidly. So joining us today in our panel discussion is Chris Romano, technical recruiter at Google; Allison Margolis, Director of Workplace Learning Innovation Lab Programs at NYU; and Dynasty Kelly, a Senior Computer Science major at Hunter College and a Basta participant. Chris has been in recruitment for nearly 10 years and has spent the last 5 years at Google focusing on strategic candidate engagement and retention. Allie has worked in education for over a decade, and for the last 2.5 years, she's led Career Pathways Innovation and Public Policy at the NYU School of Professional Services. And Dynasty is a graduating senior and participant in the Basta Fellowship Program. She's actively going through her job search to become a software engineer. And on top of balancing her job search and going to school full-time, she also has a pet sitting business and also works part-time at her school. So each of these people that you see on the screen today all have a unique position in this conversation, and we're getting ready to have a dynamic conversation about how AI is changing the future of the job search. Before we jump into our panel questions, I want to remind you all, we want to hear your questions, so please drop any questions that you have in the Q&A feature, and we will get to them at the end of this discussion. So Chris, Allie, Dynasty, thank you all so much for being a part of this conversation today. I want to just get us warmed up a little bit, right? So I'm going to start off with a fun question before we dive into today's topic. So AI has gone from something that a few years ago we saw it in sci-fi movies and that was it. And today it's a tool that can write our emails, grocery lists, and so many other things. Can you share one fun way that you've used AI in your personal life? And I'm going to have Allie get us kicked off with that.
Sure, I do have a fun one. I recently had to plan my sister's bachelorette party in Scottsdale, Arizona, and I am located in New York City. I don't know much about Scottsdale. So when it came to figuring out restaurants that are highly recommended and good for large groups, ChatGPT was super helpful in spitting out a list. I got some good recommendations on hikes and some helpful recommendations on what to pack. So that's a fun way I've used it.
I love that. I wish I knew that about a year ago when my sister was getting married. Chris, what about you? What's one fun way that you've used AI in your personal life?
That's a really good one, Allie. I didn't even think about that application, but I have used it for trips as well. But I feel like for me, it's mostly scheduling, like week to week. There's a lot of things going on. It really helps me prioritize. And I use Gemini because I'm the Google guy, so I'm not the ChatGPT person. But equally as good in terms of just like scheduling, keeping my tasks on track. Definitely used it for grocery lists before, so it really helps me stay organized.
Great. Thanks, Chris. And Dynasty, what about you?
Yeah, so I studied abroad last semester and I went to London and it's very expensive there. So I used it to budget. I told ChatGPT how much money I had in my bank account and how much I wanted to come back to New York with. And it gave me a nice budget from like transportation and food, and it was really helpful.
I love that. So we're all using it in our personal lives in various ways. And so let's talk about what that looks like in recruitment. So Chris, we're going to start with you. So Chris, when you think about the full scale of your role, from recruiting new talent to deploying strategies to bring former top talent back into Google, what areas have you seen AI bring immediate value to your work?
Yeah, I think I'll break it down into a few talking points, but I think one, as I mentioned, we utilize Gemini, right? So I think with Gemini, it's been able to do a lot of the simple administrative tasks such as reach outs and emails and things that might have been more repetitive. But then I think also Gemini has done a really good job in terms of data analysis and the way that we're able to evaluate that data and look at trends and understanding why people may have departed a company or why they're looking to come back and using a lot of that data to efficiently recruit a lot of this top talent back. Another thing that Google has done recently, and I think like it's important, and I'll preface with this, it's not like an ML in terms of decision making, but it's more of an AI in the way that we evaluate passive candidates. And they're looking at tooling to kind of look at different ways that AI might help from that efficiency perspective of predicting candidate responses based on some of their previous interactions with us, um, as well as utilizing a lot of like the tooling to identify potential new talent based on staffing requests that might be in our system, right? So there's a lot of the work that Gemini is doing on the back end that used to be a little bit more manual in the way that we source and recruit. So really, if anything, it's a lot of the expediting and efficiency that we're seeing in a lot of that day-to-day work that's bringing that immediate value and ultimately helping us be more efficient in the way that we recruit this talent.
Yeah, I could definitely see how that increases efficiency. Can you just, because there may be some people who aren't familiar with what you mean by passive candidates. So can you just share a little bit more about what that means?
Yeah, so the passive candidate is somebody that's not directly applying to a role, right? They might be somebody that we're seeking from, let's say, example, an Apple, a software engineer at Apple, and they might not be active on the market and or want to engage with us at Google right at this moment. So they would be considered more passive versus somebody that is an active applicant.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Sometimes you got to find talent or you can get it, right? So Allie, moving on to you. So the NYU School of Professional Studies, or SPS for short, works with thousands of students across the campus. So can you share how SPS is impacted by AI and how you're adapting the services you offer students on campus?
Yeah, absolutely. So SPS's Center for Career Development, what they're seeing is less students coming to them saying, hey, can you help me create a resume? Right, they're already using Gemini, ChatGPT, other AI tools to get over that blank page syndrome of not knowing even, where to start. they're already using these tools to develop their resume. Where they're now coming to NYU staff, faculty, and our career coaches is really to get help personalizing their materials. So how do I tailor my resume, my cover letter to the actual jobs that I'm applying for, to speak the lingo of the industries in which I'm applying to roles in, and to really, uplift their unique sets of skills and experiences. And that takes, right, analytical skills, it takes critical thinking skills, it takes the sorts of skills that are core to higher ed. And so I really like the phrase that our interim director of career development uses. She says that we are helping students become good prompt engineers. That's really where the shift has happened. So helping students figure out what is the right question to be asking or prompting in the AI tool that I use. How do I assess the validity of that information? How do I source out misinformation, evaluate the reliability of sources in which I'm gathering this information from, spotting misrepresentations, biases, and how to assess the relevance of the information, because again, there could be so much of it, to the actual product or thing that I as a student am looking to produce. And I'd say the other piece, of course, is when applying the information that has been sussed out through helping students become good prompt engineers, it's also, of course, about helping students use proper citation, paraphrasing, how to properly modify the language that you're using. And then I think lastly, NYU has been working together really collaboratively across all of the different schools in the university to create AI resources, AI tools, support services for students, for faculty and staff. One tool I really love that came out of that committee is this AI cheat sheet for networking and career conversations and sort of services. So we can kind of see, right, there's this cheat sheet and it says, okay, Gemini or ChatGPT, that might be better for helping prepare students for just those prompting questions for engaging with professionals, for learning about different industries. Whereas Alumni Fire, another tool, right, helps facilitate networking, career development among students and alumni within a respective school. Along with the sort of source cheat sheet, it also provides some sample prompts. So I'd say that's where we're really focused now, right? Is building on the critical thinking skills to help students become solid prompt engineers and assessors of the information that they're gathering.
Yeah. Prompting is key. I'm learning that as well the more and more I use ChatGPT. And it's also interesting to hear how you're adapting your services, but also the resources that you all are offering and how you are staying ahead of the curve in terms of that. That's really interesting. Thanks for sharing. So Dynasty, let's turn to you. So you are actively looking for a job and looking to be a software engineer. So how are you using AI in your job search?
Yeah, so as you mentioned in my intro, I am very busy right now running my pet sitting business, Dynapause. If anyone needs a pet sitter, let me know. I'm in New York and I'm a full-time computer science student, taking 5 computer science classes. I have a part-time job, so I'm juggling a lot right now, and AI has been helping me with my study schedule. So it helps me make time to study for my job search as well for my classes, as well as mentor meetings and even like personal and family time. So it's been really helpful to stay balanced in that way. I've also been using it in my interview and hiring process. So I recently went through a really intense recruitment process where I had 4 interviews and had to submit 3 materials to the company. So AI helps me with like the smaller tasks like emails and just staying responsive to my interviewers and my recruiters. So it was really helpful to make the smaller things more manageable, and I could focus on my big data analyst project that I had to submit to the company. And as a first generation college student, it's like really important for me to have instant feedback with AI. I don't have anyone at home that I can ask to look at my email. My grandma is not going to help me with the emails, so it's been really nice to have that instant feedback. And I started using it as like for simple prompts, but I've been able to tailor it for my job search and have better responses from AI. So beyond the emails and stuff like that, it's been really nice to use ChatGPT to reach out to people outside of my network because I know it's important to build my network. And LinkedIn has a really short character count because I don't have LinkedIn Premium. So it's been helpful to put in a message into ChatGPT and get a short, impactful message that I could send out to people and build my network with.
Yeah, I love that. And curious to know, so Chris brought up earlier how at Google they use AI to monitor candidate responsiveness. So just curious to understand, like, how does that make you think differently about how you interact with recruiters in your job search?
I think I've always known that it's like really important to be responsive to recruiters. So I try to stay on top of that. But knowing that Google's using AI to be to process this and see if candidates are being responsive and it could impact my future even more, it's definitely keeping me on my toes now.
Yeah. Yeah. And with that, you can also use AI to support that, right? So it's kind of a full circle moment. All right, Chris, bringing it back to you. So how are you seeing candidates use AI in their applications? And can you tell, or can other people on your team tell when people are using it in their applications and follow-ups?
Yeah, and I see a question in the chat regarding this too around like personalization. So I'll touch on that as well. But I think we're seeing a lot of it from like a formatting perspective and some of like more like generic bullet points, as Dynasty mentioned, or some of these email templates I think it's super beneficial for. I think like one of the big issues that tech companies and larger companies in general now are starting to look into is on hiring panels, we're seeing from the interview process when we can start to tell candidates are using AI within a technical setting, right? And that's obviously a big no-no. So that I think is a larger issue, and I don't think any company is there yet with how they're going to be able to combat this. But I do know it's something that's top of mind for like a lot of our leadership, especially within the technical realm. I think in general, when we think about it, personalization is definitely beneficial when we're talking about the job search. I think it really does help candidates stand out in the process. And I think in a lot of potential areas that there could be a short response or a short answer where ChatGPT or Gemini can be super efficient, it might be worth like that extra couple minutes to have a personalized approach. So I think there's definitely a balancing act. And I think like that's the important takeaway is think about it as a tool, but not necessarily the end all be all to all responses in the way that you approach it.
Yeah, I think that's really smart. And Allie, you brought up earlier like blank page syndrome. I know that I get that sometimes, but and ChatGPT can support me in that, but I should not just copy and paste that and use it in whatever form or fashion that I'm trying to, in whatever end product that I'm trying to get. As you said, Chris, it's not the end all be all. It's a great starting point. So yeah, personalization is key here. So Dynasty, bringing it back to you. So you talked a lot about how AI helps you organize your job search and manage your time, giving the array of other responsibilities that you have outside of school and you're looking for a job. But who holds you accountable during your job search?
I think AI does not keep me accountable at all during this job search. It's definitely my coaches at Boston and MLT. They keep me on track. They know my story as a first generation college student. They push me to submit applications every week, especially during my job searcher call with Boston, where I sit with my peers and apply to jobs. So it's really helpful to have the human aspect with that. AI is just like a translator. It's really fast and it can summarize things for me and help me with my resume a bit, but it can't help me. It can't introduce me to anybody in the industry. It doesn't know anyone. It can't connect me to anyone to get a referral at a company. And that's where these companies and like Boston MLT really help. And for example, I applied to a role at a really big company and got an email the next day. And I know that's not because I had AI look over my resume. I know that's because I had Basta on my resume and it's a Basta partner. So that's where these companies are really invaluable and the support makes a big difference.
Yeah, the human connection. AI is supporting like, efficiency. It seems like across the board. I think you've all talked about different ways that it helped you become more efficient. But that human element, personalizing, really thinking critically about what you're doing and what you're saying and writing is really important here. So Allie, I want to bring it back to you. So AI is advancing rapidly, as are the potential use cases. So how are your team's student-facing services staying ahead of the curve so you can effectively guide students, particularly students from underrepresented communities, to use AI in a way that gives them a competitive edge in their job search?
Yeah, it's a good point because I think, as has been alluded to, right, it's those who know how to use the tool effectively who are going to get ahead. And so in my role, I oversee access programs at the School of Professional Studies, such as the Career Pathways Bridge program. This provides free tuition for NYU SPS associate degrees, along with other customized career-connected learning and wraparound services. And so given that the majority of our students are first generation students, they're students residing in underserved communities across New York and New York City. Nearly 100% of our students are Pell and TAP eligible. It's so important that we collaborate with organizations like BASTA, like Hello Hive, like others who are really expert in supporting students in ways that are culturally relevant, competent, and in touch with the realities, right? Here to Here put out a report not too long ago that only 14% of New York residents employed in mid to high wage occupations are New York born Black and Latinx individuals. The Black and Latinx individuals in mid and high, with college degrees still remain twice as likely to work in low wage occupations. And, the reality is that diversity of any kind is something to be celebrated and lifted up. In the career exploration and application process, it's not something to be dimmed. So that is why partnering with BASTA, for example, where our students can use tools like Seeker Survey, combined with discovery sessions, that helps our students, figure out, okay, what are my strengths? What are my interests? What are the skills that are unique and personal to me? And then what do I do about that, right? Like, what are the opportunities and resources that are right in front of me that I could take advantage of? What are the internships and jobs that might be relevant to my interests? So it helps kind of go from this like huge, sort of slate to things that I, as a student, am actually interested in. And Hello Hive, I'm excited. We'll be working with them next month on their AI resume building tool. Because that's going to help our students tell their story, tell their unique journeys, and share who they are in ways that translate to the employers and industries that they're interested in pursuing. And I mean, I would just say, like lastly on that note, the tech, the tools, they're only as good as the folks who know how to use them. Like it's knowing how to the tools work when the students know how to work them. And that is why I'd say for any of our partners, like we have a session coming up this Friday with BASTA, where Dr. Amber Field is actually going to help students unpack their Seeker survey results, compare and contrast their different strengths, figuring out what are their career drivers, and how to identify information that could help guide their search. So I think, as Dynasty was saying, it's like that in-person piece combined with the tools that we're seeing helps like personalize the materials. And I think, as Chris was mentioning before, I like to think of the tool, it provides the frame or the container. It's the personalization pieces that are the content or the meat of the product.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. We're seeing so many wonderful questions come through, and I want to make sure that we have time for that. So we're going to ask one last question to really look ahead, thinking about the future. And Chris, I'm going to turn it to you and ask you a final question before we open up the Q&A. So Chris, how do you think AI will continue to transform recruitment over the next 5 years? And how can companies prepare for what's coming?
That's the end all be all question, right? So everyone wants to know that answer. I think the biggest piece from a recruitment perspective is definitely going to be like the efficiency piece. I think a lot of recruiters that have been in the industry for quite some time know that like it can be very manual, right? Your Boolean searches, reaching out to candidates, getting them scheduled, all that, those types of day-to-day things that recruiters incur is going to be expedited. So I think like companies that are able to look at it as an efficiency tool and the speed in which they can effectively get top talent within their queues, retain that talent, and do it in a speed that might be able to beat out potential competitors. I think like also the way, and I think Google's doing a good job of doing this, is taking advantage of a lot of the trainings and keeping up with AI trends on how to utilize this tooling on a day-to-day perspective to stay ahead of the curve. I think most recruiting professionals will tell you like it's not going to be AI replacing recruiters. It's going to be recruiters that are able to efficiently and efficiently leverage this tooling to the best of its ability. I think companies are starting to think about how to use AI in recruitment and how to attract this talent. So I think that companies that are able to efficiently train employees and a lot of people within their organization to utilize this tooling to the best of its ability are going to be the ones that stay ahead of the trend. And I think are ultimately going to be the ones that retain a lot of this top talent.
Great, great. Well, Chris, thanks for closing out the panel discussion. We've been seeing some really cool questions come in, so we want to move to that part. But Chris, Dynasty, Allie, thank you so much for just sharing your insights on this topic. So we're going to open up the Q&A. I'm going to invite back everyone that you've heard today. So Sheila's going to be joining us for the Q&A. Kendra's going to be joining us again for the Q&A. And I'm also going to introduce a new face, Christina Chinisi, BASA's Director of Growth and Partnerships, to join the Q&A as well. Christina spends every day working with our university partners like Allie and has some really great insights on their concerns and needs when it comes to AI. So the first question is for Allie. So Allie, can you share effective strategies to help young people avoid falling victim to scam job postings, especially those unknowingly recommended by AI? This person is seeing a lot of students falling for like LinkedIn phishing posts where content was AI generated. So what advice are you giving students about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something that comes up and is also core to this critical thinking and analytical skills piece. Looking at the validity of the source that you are getting, helping students analyze how does this job maybe compare to roles at other companies I'm interested in, roles in other industries. How long has this job been posted? How many people have applied? Is it some crazy ghost number? Has it been sitting there for, weeks, months, and whatnot? And just helping students also know, like, you want to apply to a lot of things, not just one, so that if something like that happens, you're not banking on it. But I think that's where, we encourage students, once you use the tool, once you maybe gather your list, now make an appointment with a career coach, right? Now reach out to your mentor to schedule a check-in with them and get some advice. And doing things like that. So again, the tool is maybe the container, but then you have your personal connections and people who can help you along with your own critical thinking skills to assess the validity of that job and the source in which it comes from.
Yeah, that human connection again. All right, the second question is for Chris. So Chris, are there trends where job seekers may be penalized for using AI in their job search or application or interviews? How can job seekers avoid this? And should they be trying to avoid detection?
I think that's kind of what we alluded to a little bit earlier, right? I think like it's using it as a tool is fine from like the broad. Allie had a great example from like the container perspective, but I think like if you're really utilizing it for like the end answers and trying to manipulate certain results, it's going to be something that companies are going to start to really hone in on. I think again, as I mentioned earlier, from like a technical perspective, if you're somebody that's going to be coding and in the weeds from the technical side, that's where you really want to steer away from it, right? The personalization approach, the way you're going to be going about coding in a technical interview, you want it all to be you. But when we think about personalization and emails and follow-ups and all that type of stuff that we previously covered, I think that's where you utilize it to the best of your ability.
Yeah, thanks, Chris.
Sure.
All right, the next question is for Kendra. So this is kind of a tough one. So for Seeker and organizations using AI to screen potential candidates, is there a feedback loop that helps tune the model and minimize false positives and negatives? And if there is, how do you obtain and integrate that feedback? What metrics do you use? What metrics do you capture to support continuous improvement of the models?
Yeah, that could be a whole hour in itself. And so honestly, I think that really starts not just at the capturing metric perspective, but all the way at the beginning. So your data sets and training. So first, it's really about carefully examining your data sources and their size to understand their limitations, removing or anonymizing PII or personally identifiable information to while preserving those meaningful patterns. And really establish processes for continuously improving that data quality rather than passively accepting, potentially flawed or incomplete inputs. And then we want to avoid using data that we don't fully understand. And that's why we partner with domain and subject matter experts such as learning designers and career coaches. The other aspect of that is around evaluation. And so I really encourage the use of multidimensional assessments, which means explicitly defining and tracking various combinations of user segments and comparing those metrics to other user segments based on what your use cases are. So, and then the other piece is like moving beyond simple kind of one size fits all metrics. So evaluating how success rates differ across those multiple user segments and look for patterns where there are overlapping factors that could affect outcomes. And by analyzing the performance across those different user segments, you can kind of spot where the model may be underperforming. Two more areas. So like feedback, I think, in collaboration, which is like what this is getting at. And what I think I saw another question on is involving those, a broad range of voices. So those subject matter experts who have those, varied professional or lived experiences, but also maintaining open communication channels so that the key stakeholders in the organization can also review the model's progress and provide inputs. We never want to go off and build something on an island or in a vacuum. And so that's why those ongoing feedback loops and incorporating that user and expert input is really throughout development is really important so that we can course correct quickly. And then the last piece on that is we really want to avoid making high level decisions without consulting those who deeply understand the technology and the people that we're serving with it. And then I'll round that out with really evolution. So recognizing that assessment, it's not a set it and forget it thing. It's never complete. And so we have to regularly reevaluate methods and assumptions that we have as we learn more from people using these systems in the real world and updating our processes or modeling techniques in response to those changing user needs. And I think overall, those things really underscore our commitment to creating AI systems that account for varied experiences, including those overlapping factors that could lead to different experiences. And so I would say really to think about it at every stage. So data collection, evaluation, feedback, and iterative improvement.
Wow. Such an expert, such an expert response. I could never have thought about that. Thank you so much for just walking us through that, Kendra. So the next question is for Sheila. So Sheila, what's the most important step leaders can take today to integrate AI into hiring in the right way?
Yeah, I really love that question. And that's, in part related to what I shared in our opening remarks, which is about a year ago, I'd say the over 130 folks who joined this conversation today, most of us weren't thinking about AI, using AI, hadn't even considered AI in our day-to-day work. And so in some ways, we are all sort of at the starting line together, regardless of, let's take generation as a primary sort of proxy from, Gen Alpha to baby boomer. And so I think the thing that we see at Basta that I've observed as most critical is the folks who have an intense curiosity and a desire for learning are the folks who have figured out how to hack AI to make them better at their jobs. And so as I think about what we want, who we want to hire for, it's less important to me that someone can sort of speak to their years of AI experience because that's not likely to be somebody that we're going to find, but rather looking for folks with sort of a sense of curiosity, a desire for continuous learning. Those are traits that have always been important in our hiring. They're actually part of Basta's core competencies. But as we think about this next phase, this next sort of technical leap that we are all experiencing together, that sense of curiosity and that sort of desire for continuous learning are just critically important. And so when I think about what's important or what important steps leaders can take, I think is less about like assessing for technical, aptitude when we're thinking about AI, but really assessing for those things that we know will allow someone to be a continuous learner. As employers, I think we need to create lots and lots of space for people to learn on the job, because it's just we're sort of asking people to both recognize, build, and strengthen a new muscle every day. And so we're trying to do that at Basta regularly. We have a sort of an AI channel where people can a Slack channel where people can sort of drop fun new things, drop questions, things that they're seeing and learning. We use team time to talk about the fun and work ways that people are using AI. I had never thought about being like, I have $20 to go grocery shopping and I want to eat healthfully. What should I buy? So we are really trying to think about those, the ways that we're sort of finding ways to make AI just sort of part of how people are thinking and living in order to make sure that they can use those new skills at work.
Yeah, thanks, Sheila. Question for Dynasty, and Allie, you may have some insight onto this as well. So Dynasty, what guidance are you receiving around using AI as an efficiency tool, but also still balancing the authentic personal response, especially around like in applying for roles and in interviewing for roles?
I think my coach at Boston really helps with guiding me while using AI. So I can draft out an email, but also make sure that I'm getting a second pair of eyes to look at it. Like Chris said, it's really about like personalizing the email and making sure that things are it doesn't sound robotic. So I think that's the guidance I've been getting, just getting advice from my coaches at MLT and Basta.
Yeah. Allie, anything to add in terms of like the guidance that you're providing?
Yeah, I mean, there was a good question in there about like our staff. How are we utilizing it? Are we getting support with it? And what Sheila said is really resonating, right? That it's there. It's about creating the space for it. So I think whether it's for students, creating that space for them and creating that space for us as faculty and administrators, that's been something that's been like a change. So this time last year, we weren't planning an AI session with students. We weren't using the Seeker tool. We didn't know about it. This year we are. So those are like changes in support services. I think from the data, the reporting that Seeker has provided to our team, we're then able to customize and personalize the sorts of experiences and sessions that we as a program provide and the types of communication that we put out, which is really helpful. And I mean, as for, that piece on the administrative support and training there, the school, the university and our school specifically have both put out a number of resources, training support services, which are so helpful. Now I think it's like we need the time and space to use those, to learn from those. Fortunately, in our division meetings, lunch and learns, things like that, we have that opportunity. But to another point that was made earlier, we also, have to be responsible for the drivers of our own learning and be responsible for that.
Yeah. Thanks so much, guys. And just like that, our hour is coming to a close. Time truly does fly when you're having fun. So to our panelists, to the Basta team, to everyone who has joined today's webinar, thank you so much for being with us and engaging in today's event. We're actually going to be making this a series. So many conversations are happening around AI. There's still so many questions about how people are using it. And so we're going to be planning a second event in this series soon. So be on the lookout for more information on that in the coming weeks and months. So as Kendra shared earlier, and as you're seeing on the screen, we encourage you to sign up to take SeekerLite. We're dropping the link in the chat again, so you'll receive it in the coming days, and we're also going to include it in our follow-up materials. And lastly, we invite you to connect with the BASA team. We really want to continue this conversation about how AI is being used in our space and in the recruitment space. So we're going to send a follow-up email. So please reply if you would like to discuss anything that you heard here today further. So thank you so much for joining, and have a nice afternoon.